Hi everyone, I'm an emotional eater. I am. Those of us with weight issues, and I count myself in this situation, we use food for something other than fuel. Now, I have learnt over the last 5 years of maintaining that certain types of food are more likely to make me lose control, and if I stay clear of them, in particular for me refined carbohydrates, sugary things, then I'm more likely to revert to eating out of control. And that's because we know that carbohydrates in particular fire off all of our feel-good hormones. So it makes total sense. It's a survival response that we all have inside of us. So I could choose to stay away from those sorts of things, but I just don't want to. And so I try to have an element of control in what I put in my mouth. But sometimes it just doesn't work. And sometimes I do lose control. And that might surprise you, given that I have been maintaining for 5 years now. But I wanted to talk about those times when I do, and how my whole attitude towards it now has changed from one of being weak and greedy and rubbish at maintaining and a bit disgusting, that the sort of things I can eat and the sort of amounts I could put away. And I've swapped my whole perspective and my whole attitude away from those negative associations to one of what have I got to learn. And I find that that is much more helpful in my whole management of my maintenance, and one of the key factors in how I've managed to maintain for so long. And it was also one of the things that helped me to get to goal. It cut through any guilt and made me understand myself and accept that I'm a work in progress, and I still am, as you will see in a minute. And that's okay. We're all flawed, and that's part of being human. And to expect perfection is a lot to ask of ourselves. So my situation this week, where I have learnt a lot about myself, is that I had a really lovely day with one of my family members, and it was a situation that is going to come to an end because he's off to uni. You can probably guess which one it is now, but he's off to uni, and I miss him like crazy when he goes. And we'd spent a really nice day together, and then he had to go out somewhere, and it kind of symbolised what is about to happen this weekend when he goes back to university. And when he left to go out, I found myself pacing around the kitchen, literally doing this, right in front of the fridge. And now I'm in front of the cupboard where the chocolate is. And then I turned back, and I saw on the island a bag of Skittles. And they belong to my daughter, and she doesn't tend to eat everything all at once. Amazingly, she will open it, have a bit, and then seal it back up again. So I carefully undid the seal and opened the bag of Skittles and looked inside, and I thought there's enough Skittles in there that she's not going to notice if I have some. And although that is not something I ever usually eat, every fibre in my being was calling me to eat something, because I am an emotional eater, and I have learnt through my past experiences going way back that eating particularly refined carbs makes me feel better, because it fires off all of those good hormones, as I said before. So I know that's part of my makeup. So when I'm feeling a strong emotion, I will go down that pathway. And so I opened up the bag of Skittles, stuffed my hand in, stuffed them into my mouth, stood there chewing away. And then, you know how you do when you have that conversation in your head, devil and angel I call them, mind monkeys, I call them too, my mind monkeys chattering away. The things that are, well, the devil is the mind monkey, isn't it? And the angel is trying to fight them. But the mind monkeys were yabbiting away, saying to me, you really need this. In fact, my mind monkeys weren't really saying anything other than eat, eat, eat it. And it was my angel that was going, come on now, this is not a sensible choice. This is not going to help you to maintain. This is going to make you feel so much worse. This is going to make you lose control because it's refined carbs. And every time my angel came up with something, my mind monkeys, my devil would go, don't care, don't care. A swear word would come in, maybe, to tell the angel to go away. And that's why I ended up stuffing them in my mouth. Now for me, because I have practiced learning and learning and learning for 5 years now, and letting go of the guilt, I am much more likely in these situations to regain control. I don't always at all, and I don't want you to think about that. There are many occasions when I do stuff like that and down it goes and I swallow it. But I've learnt that it's not that's not what does the damage. In times of acute stress, that's just part of my makeup, and I suspect it always will be, and I kind of forgive myself for that now. That isn't what does the damage. What does the damage is day after day after day after day after week after week after year of doing it and not addressing the underlying causes. Now, the situation this week with the Skittles was an acute situation, a stressful situation for me. It's a time I find very difficult when he goes back to uni. I miss him like crazy. My body's flooded with cortisol as I anticipate leaving him, and I'm very sad when we do. But it passes, and I just get on with my life, as those of you who have children who've gone off to university know. And I know that that's true. So I know that this feeling isn't going to continue and continue and continue. And I know that I'm not going to therefore continue trying to numb it. And what I visualize with my emotions and my eating is this. So this is a box that one of my clients gave me actually as a thank you gift. Absolutely beautiful, isn't it? All the way from India. Thank you, Yasmin, if you're watching. And this box is how I kind of view my emotional eating. And that is that how I used to be when I got 7.5 stone overweight was this box had all of my emotions in it. All of them, from good ones to bad ones. And this was in my head somewhere, or perhaps in my heart, I don't know, but somewhere in my body, or a replica of the box. You see where I'm going with this. And whenever a difficult emotion came out, so maybe, I don't know, I was really angry with someone about something, then it's a bit like the lid of the box opening up and the feeling peeking out over the top, going, here I am, here I am. And what I did with the eating was I used the food to slam the lid back down on the box to keep that feeling back in that box and to shut it up. And what I do now, and those feelings, by the way, would come in all sorts of ways: sadness, happiness, even extreme happiness. It would be like, yay! And even that is sometimes an overwhelming emotion. And actually, what I found with happiness was that the eating enhanced it, so it made me feel even happier, which is interesting. So here are all these emotions swirling around in this box, and the eating was to keep the lid on them. Keep that lid on that box, because the emotions were and are difficult ones, and ones I don't really want to look at. And so the food worked to keep that lid down on the box. What I try really hard to do now, and what I did with the Skittles this week, is because I've had this attitude of learning, I've thought, right, okay, let's take a really close look inside this box. What emotions coming out here that I really need to look at? Instead of thinking of these moments of eating as awful, that have got to be suppressed and that have got to be shut up, I think of it the complete opposite, and I think that's interesting. This feeling's coming out to try and teach me something here. What have I got to learn? What have I got to learn about myself and my life? So my example of the Skittles was, this is really interesting. I'm feeling really, really sad. Why am I feeling really sad? Because I'm going to miss my son. Why are you going to miss him? And that led on to more and more and more questions about me and my life and what I needed to do. Was there anything I could do about it? You know, some things I think, grief, yeah, is there anything you can do about the fact that I'm grieving that my son's going? Well, even grief, you know, if it's extreme grief, like someone's died, there's still stuff you can do, isn't there? You can get grief counselling when the time's right. For me, I thought what I needed to actually do was let that feeling out. Don't squash it down with the Skittles. And I had a good old cry. If he's watching this, he'd probably be very embarrassed. Or maybe he'd be rather secretly he would come and give me a hug, wouldn't he? But I had a good old cry because I'm going to miss him. And if I'd still felt sad, if that feeling was still there, and it wasn't, and it was one I still wanted to squash down with the food, then I would have probably rung one of my really good friends and had a good old chat and just let it all out. Feelings are there to give us a message. They're telling us something, and we've got to look inside our boxes and see what it is they're trying to tell us, and see what it is that we need to change, adjust, come to terms with, learn from in our lives, that we can control and change. Because ultimately, all we can do is make changes for ourselves. I can't ask him not to go to uni, and I wouldn't want to do that either. I just wouldn't. I love the fact that he's off and leading his life. So I've got to look at what I can control and change in my life, and be accountable for those feelings that are coming out, and be accountable for controlling how I deal with them, rather than just let's stop those feelings from coming out. Come on, there's another one. Yeah, great. Let's have a look. So what I did with the Skittles, mouthful of Skittles, I walked over to the bin and I spat them all out, and I sat down and I opened my box and I had a good old cry. Stop me eating the Skittles. And doubtless I will have many, many times in my life when crappy things happen, and I have got to learn how to deal with those. And so I'm no different to you guys in any way, shape or form. I still emotionally eat, but what I've learnt to do is to control it a little better, not all the time, but some of the time, by changing my whole perspective and attitude from one of shame and guilt to one of, okay, what have I got to learn here? Hope that helps.